All right, here we go again. Buckle up, rough roads ahead. So I was talking to the missionary sisters today. They want me to do my interview for the baptism. So again, we worked that out, and then they said, because you're not feeling well, we think you should get a priestly blessing. So I'm gonna go over to this guy's house that I had some interaction with on on during the classes in the church and all that. So, well, I think what's the way I see it happening, unless I get weller, is I'm just going to watch the church online and do whatever I can. I mean, I heal people. So I'll heal people from that vantage point, right? It just it's the way it works. I mean, I should have been in the church 10 years ago. Again, God is a little upset at that. Again, the LDS Church as a whole is fine, but there are corrupt cells in it, as I evidenced the other day. Dirty cops are corrupt cells. So again, if you're doing your dirty deeds and saying this guy's or gal's a dangerous person and we have to do this, that, and the other thing, no matter whether you keep it close to the cuff with a small cell or you contact the leadership, it's corruption. The Bible calls it corruption. And so does the law. Burning some frankincense in here. Yeah, to get the law burning frankincense. Thanks, Larry. That's how they do it. They hire, official, the dirty cops or have an official status. That's how they ruin your life. Otherwise, I'd been married every place I was in. Again, if it gets past, having a conversation, they still, like that one woman, we were friends. They destroyed that and then tried to make it out to be her. Right. So what they do is the Home Depot security guy, him and the cop roll up to try to give him credit. Oh, boy, it's a Santa Fe PD, so just ignore it, boy. We're okay, right? Now you go to hell just like everyone else. They spend a lot of time trying to convince the victim that it's nothing, and then of course the victim gets sick. Right. So when I did reconnect to massage therapy in Santa Fe, and that Dumbo woman from UPS tried psyoping me with all the rest of them, I did have a downturn in health. So the idea is that they're busy breaking up. This is on my Wi-Fi system, but it's a cell, so it may transfer over the Wi-Fi when I get near it. So again, there's a possibility that some of these people are born on this planet multiple times. So they're like resident devils, resident evil. So if we destroy, if the planet gets destroyed, if mankind ends, then they end. Right? So I don't think God's going to let them carry it over to Mars. I really don't. I don't think you'll live long trying to go to Mars and survive health-wise, unless you come up with something. Well, it's just people. That's how people continue in evil. Like there's always something in their mind that says it's okay. Oh, we're just going to Mars. God's not destroying us. We're just going to go to Mars. Right. I was going to talk to the administration about something. Right. So again, reduce the friction And it sounds like President Trump's trying to work something. I think he's, just going to slide into bringing some of those people back. I'd bring them all back and just start from scratch. Because I don't think they're going to allow. The problem is you're not really just deporting them, even if they're from El Salvador. They're leaving and they're going into this prison, a pretty tough prison. Well, again, nothing. That's if that's El Salvador's world. That's El Salvador's world. But you can't do that from the United States. Right? They can also. Their family can sue you. You're going to pay those families, especially if they sue you in D.C. with a D.C. jury or New York with a New York jury. Right. See, that's how I'm telling you, use of friction and get things right, because that's what's going to happen eventually. We'll probably be millionaires. Right? I think a judge already found that the Alien Enemies Act is not applicable. All right. That's what you would be like. Oh, shit. You definitely shouldn't stay here. Well, I told you, you're gloating over something that's gloatless. It's just a matter of time. So they'll let you have your, little party. But at a certain point, there are issues that are going to crop up, and then they're going to shut you down. Well, again, there were issues when the CIA was doing it. So there's going to be definitely issues if they're doing it. I told you, turn them around at the border and all that stuff, and all the tough talk, but it has to fit within the system. Well, if you detain them in the United States, correct, at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, like they did the Mariel boat lift, they're not going to say anything. Correct. See? So again, it's not that there's no answer, it's just you're not going to use the answer that exists or the answer that is legal. And again, if it gets too extreme, the Supreme Court or some other court can order a special master to oversee your operations. So you have to check in with the special master before you move anybody. And the special master approves it. They monitor, whether they've been given habeas corpus rights and that type of thing. Again, the court starts slow because they traditionally they don't want to do that. What was I in here? I was in here to get something. But as soon as I could get my temporal muscle to relax, I could clean my sinuses started draining, and then I sneezed. So that's one of what it was. Again, none of this would be happening if I could have stayed in massage therapy. And again, no, you made sure that I couldn't. You used CIA level technology, spent millions and millions of dollars. Why would you do that? Because you all work for Satan. You're a bunch of liars and murderers, and your father is the devil. That's why. Now, thanks for projecting that kind of stuff. So now I remember what God wanted me to say. Oh, it's good. Satan's trying to hide it. Okay. So, the LDS have a certain history. Right. So we have Jesus Christ that came to earth, He was able to do 3 years of ministry, right, and crucified him. Correct. We have Joseph Smith. I don't remember the years of his ministry. He was able to do a short ministry, and then they killed him. They haven't killed me yet, but of course they've murdered me because I'm going to die earlier from all their nonsense. And I never got to the place where I was supposed to be in life to deliver my information. So Satan laughs, you all laugh, but what do you think God's doing? What do you think God's perspective is? I can't even send this angel to earth and have even a 3-year ministry. Right. 100%. But there's no sense for the planet to exist. Most likely I'm the 7th angel because this is it. God's not going to send anyone else. So ending mankind, ending the planet, and then God says there's some other mechanisms working to take people off the planet and send them to hell instead of being reborn here in a new body. What Satan does is he claims the credit from these people's prior lives. And again, it's dishonest. The system on this planet is very dishonest because actually they're like murderers and stuff. Right. That's how you get born into millionaire and billionaire families, or multi-millionaire and billionaire families. No, the planet. God is attempting to end the planet. There's no doubt. God even gave me a vision where it ends like tomorrow, and I'm standing there at the end. See, saying it can come any day. It doesn't have to wait for 40 years or 50 years. Walgreens is funny because you can have a prescription that doesn't have any refills and they still call you and ask if you want a refill. Now what they do is they contact the doctor and try to refill it, but I tell them that was emergency room. I don't think they're going to get any refills on that one. But they're pretty persistent. They work it. They work the prescription in the pharmacy pretty good. All right. A lot of people do, even doctors, like, not all doctors, but I guess they get kicked back, so. Yeah, it's been a rough day today. Pretty tired. I tried sleeping earlier, but I couldn't because of all that tissue cramping. I didn't realize what it was and fall asleep and like, They isolated me, made sure. Again, I've reached out to people and people have reached out to me and then they do their stuff and then it's over. And then, of course, whoever's participating in it gets money. Right. The movers are getting to my brother's condo tomorrow. He's still packing. And then they're going to move everything out. And then the construction crews are going to come in at some point and start leveling the slab. I guess they got to jack it up and put foundation on it. That's one of the troubles in Florida, especially if you're on the first floor. Now, my brother said he could force them to do it. The condo association, I don't know if they're going to kick in some or not, but he's not even like, he says it just takes so long it wouldn't even be worth it. Right? Because you have to force them. Right? He just wants it done and wants it updated. And he's got money. Thanks. Well, like he calls my mom and they run me into the ground and they give him money. It happened over here. Right? It's where you learn to be like that. I used to like know my brother's friends. It was like, every so often he'd invite me and I'd meet his college friends. I go up to his college, even after we went in the house, before he was married. I'd help him, prepare for a party. I think we cooked a pizza one time, or pizzas. But then when I got out of the Marshal Service, it was weird. Right. So what happened was that I don't know, I somehow hooked up with my brother. I don't remember how he came into the picture, but it was one of the first days I was in my mom's place. It may have been actually the first day, I don't know. Right. After I left the Marshal Service. So my mother has a second floor in a duplex. Well, she actually owns a whole duplex, but hers is, she rents one out and she has the second floor. So we're walking up the steps and my brother's in front of me. And the light, I thought it would be okay because he's showing that he's a seer, The light blinks. Upstairs, my brother goes, "See there?" Regular. But then he just turned to be a rat's ass. Right. I manipulated him with money. He's not a jerk to me. He doesn't get anything. Same thing they did in the Marshal Service. To all those money grubbers. So by my calculations, in 2013, I should be able to get an attorney and then reapply for those benefits and get those Desert Storm-related benefits. Well, he says there is no official finding of Persian Gulf syndrome. It's just a collection of things that they have identified occur in these Persian Gulf veterans. And I knew the deep state was just blocking it as long as they could because they didn't want me to have money to have an okay life and an okay health. Right? That's part of what that money would have been used for, is to get these massages and everything else. 100%. Again, move into a house in a decent neighborhood. Right. Thank you, Larry. The kind of life that Satan afforded all them. No, I'd be totally healthy. I mean, I bounced back when I got to Santa Fe just fine, but I had to stay in massage. I couldn't get out of it. They were operating. When they tell you they wanted me to go, they operated me to stay, right? While pushing me out to go. Again, playing that game, push pull. It's depletion. No, but it's weird because, and I'm not taking muscle relaxers. Certain parts of my body are super relaxed, and other parts are still cramped. And that's where the problem is. Right? If I can just get it all worked out, I'd probably be okay. Well, I have to cut down on the use of the magnesium oil, but I can't do that because certain areas are still tight. So I'll have to keep working those, see what I can do. And then I have another steroid treatment coming up. At some point. But the key was 5-10 years I should have been allowed to move on and have a normal life. I mean, right. People are starting to come out. I got outside. There's a lot of life that helps your tissues relax. And, I don't believe in, especially drinking to excess, but drinking, rationally actually is healthy. Not, again, not more healthy than not drinking, but for me, if I'd have drank, I probably wouldn't have tightened up like this. Right. If I was gay, I would have had friends. Right. I've probably been in like a gay porn troupe or something. That's what they would have forced, Yeah, an all black gay troupe. I'm the only white guy. I know what they do, man. I've tested them. Right. They're weird, man. They're all weird. You have a couple people, you have the two virgins and a couple cops legitimize the whole thing and pay them all off. Right. Now I'm trying to push myself to get another walk again. Oh, gosh. I actually had energy at a certain point today. My energy just tanked. It could be allergies, too. But I was starting to suffer without rinsing my sinuses, so most likely is allergy. Right. Now they set it up. That's what their whole thing was. They were trying to stop me from rinsing my sinuses. Right. So they broke in, but when they broke in, I already ordered a new sinus thing, so that's why they messed up the delivery. Hoping that they would cause me not to use the sinus rinser. Thank you, Larry. Nah, if I hooked up with a woman, we'd have been together for life. With no doubt. We got married, and that would have been it. Kill that woman there. Be healed, woman. Be healed, woman. I hate people saying bye. God, introduced that years ago. Like, you should say, see ya, take care, till we meet again. What coincides with the afterlife, the reality of the afterlife. Now, some people will go to hell, and then some people won't be around people even if they don't go to hell, or certain people, right? Like my ex-wife did too much against me, I believe, for us to ever see each other again. She'll be held harmless because her psychology just wasn't well enough to not be that. And again, she was manipulated by the deep state. They got into her life until I was going. What happened was there was a church. I was on Facebook, and it was a church I used to attend, and I put a YouTube video. It was Victory in Jesus, and the deep state erased it. And I just couldn't break through and post it again. Later, I don't know if I realized at that point that it was them. They tried to make me believe it was the church, but later I realized that they were erasing my posts. So again, you see what they're doing, right? Not allowing the reconnection. That was their fear. Because again, they didn't want me telling my family what was happening, right? I just wonder if they know that the deep state is what it was. Right. Not to say that you have to vote for Trump or anything, because it's just they're Republican deep staters, always have been, and they're Democrats and everything in between. Thank you, Larry. I'll probably meet my daughters again in the afterlife. Right. There's no way for me to get to it. I tried again when I tried to do it with Jay. Jay ended up dead. Killed in Iraq. He was going to go home and go back to college in Maryland, and then I said, well, help me with my kids. I'll secretly. Right. If you need money, we'll give him some money. Right. I don't have a lot, but something. Right. And then he could make sure they're okay, but then also maybe at a certain point reintroduce, because he would push them to come see me or let me see them. Right. 100%. Maybe do a road trip all together. Right. So again, the deep state was that close in. illegally monitoring for corrupt criminal purposes. I mean, right. And they may have actually extended Jay for that purpose, just so he couldn't do what we were planning. I mean, you're sick like that. Believe me. I mean, kill John Luna. I mean, come on. I mean, right. To them, they have a lot at stake. If they just would have let me be, nothing would ever happen. Right. Yeah. They drugged me and whacked my head while I was in the Marshal Service. Well, again, the idea is I'm the kind of guy you want to go to church so I can explain it, so you all could repent. Right. But again, it got to the point where you can't repent, all of you. And it may have been there when it started because you may have done it to someone else. Right. I'm not the only person that God loves. Well, I don't brag, but I'm one of God's favorites. No, it takes time to dismantle a planet with one person. I mean, that's really what's going on. It didn't have to be this. It didn't have to go that way. So I got a busy day tomorrow. I got to get a priestly blessing, and I have to have my interview for my baptism. I guess the president of the missionaries interviews me, or the local missionaries, or the ward missionaries, or whatever it is. And I always feel guilty because, spiritually I'm advanced. Again, I'm a sinner saved by grace, so I'm not saying anything else, right? But I'm spiritually advanced, and they know it. And I kind of feel guilty when they recognize it. I've never done well with that kind of thing, but again, I carry myself a certain way around them. I tried to explain to him. I said, I'm just, I don't know if my health is well enough for all this. And I said, I take that thing seriously, that interview, and and all the promises, and it's a lot of stuff for a man my age with my disability, right? But they said, well, nobody's perfect. I said, no, I realize we're all sinners saved by grace, but I know I'm going home more than anybody else on the planet. I was an angel, came here and did my thing, and then I'm going to go. I mean, it's one thing God made clear. God made clear. He says, you're going home 15 different ways. Don't even worry about it when I woke up. And then he's like, not that I was worrying about it, but he threw that out there just so I knew there was 15 different mechanisms at least. Right. And then God's like, you're an angel. You came here. You weren't supposed to be in the body. You're in the body. They killed your life, and that's it. You'll leave, and I'll God will clean house. No, there's Satan, man. I work with Satan people. I mean, what else can I say? Tried to, they psyoped me all those years, tried to get me to commit a crime. I didn't do it. I got out of there because I was an honest, good, healthy worker, or not healthy, a good, hard worker, an honest worker. I had built up too much credit in the short time that I worked for them to be able to destroy me back then. Right? But the earth, increased in its evil, and the thoughts continually were evil. Nowadays. What's your worry? There's no reason for this planet to continue. There is none. I mean, Well, what about the children? Are you so callous that you don't care about the children? It's like a scam. Well, every generation comes and every generation goes. Someday it has to be that last generation and end. Right? I mean, it's again, it is seen that it's not a benefit to have the planet. There's no reason to have another generation. There's none. Everybody dies, so at some point everybody will die off, and the planet will either continue or die itself. But mankind can't continue. Not at all. There's nothing kind about mankind. That's the reality. Well, because you have to understand the Ponzi scheme, the grift, the grifter, or the contract. None of the troubles are necessary. In the time that this planet was here, we could have progressed another 7,000 years in technology, charity, health, and everything else. But because you curse one another and hate on one another and actually hide it from the majority of the planet, that's what's actually going on, we never got anywhere. Like, you could have had laptops in 1776 if the planet was nicer to each other. So that's what these people are actually doing. They're stopping technology, and that's partly why they kill me. Well, because if we have technology, everything they do to people to harm them is a lot less likely to succeed. Right? They're devils, demons, antichrists, witches, sorcerers, and other such nefarious beings. Could be your preacher, could be your president, could be somebody else's president. Thank you, Lawrence. No, but you don't understand the mind that's here. Like, nobody understands. Like, God tries to bring a better mind, and it has an appearance of good, but its thoughts are continually evil. Okay. Well, it's like, charity Nazis or charity mafias. I mean, you can't go one direction or the other. 100%. No, because of the NGO thing and all the federal funding and all the state funding and also private sector funding, there are families that are crime families. They're mafia. They get all the charity money or a portion of the charity money. And they have turf warfare with the other charity mafias. But yet, if you're somebody like me that's doing charity on the street, they try to kill you because that's a person they could fake help. They don't want people to succeed because they want them to come back a second time, and then they get a second round of funding. Right? If you're a heroin addict for life, they can get like 10 sessions of 10 6-month sessions of counseling or whatever it is, and get federal funding 10 times throughout your life. They don't care if you get healed. In fact, they want you to stay sick and they want to make their money. It's in everything. It's in law enforcement. It's everywhere. They have the power to heal you, and they don't. But they go to church. Right. Thank you, Larry. I honestly believe, I'm not sure, but it seemed like Michael W. Smith's demeanor changed somewhere in life. He's still part of the upper crust. He's still part of the spoon-feds. But at a certain point, I think he realized the truth. Right. That there's no real thing going on here. Right. The Lord told me, this is what the Lord told me. And I guess I still was, but it was more of a, covert kind of metaphysical projection type of thing. So I'm watching Hagee. Watching Hagee online, and not online, I think it was even on television back then. Unless it was online, I can't remember. I'm watching Hagee, and John Hagee, and he's showing this video of the end times where they're cutting people's heads off with a guillotine. And I'm waking up, and I know about seeing, I know about the head. Your head is your metaphysical presence. Sometimes it's called your head, your mind, your metaphysical presence. So they actually are cutting your head off they're spiritually false, causing you to sleep and to have no spiritual self. Right? You become spiritually blind. Even if you go to church and all that. Again, I went to church, but I was spiritually blind. Right? I'm still spiritually blind from where to be and how to be. Again, this health problems is caused by being directly cursed by devils in government and outside of government. And then I'm spiritually blinded. But again, that causes me not to be judgeable. Right? That God won't judge my sins. Yeah. So not only am I saved, I still don't have a life where I would be judged due to the interference of all the corrupt and criminal devils, demons, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers in government and law enforcement, in the private sector, in narcotics distribution and sex trafficking. Right. But God said, I was watching Hagee, and he had this show where this guy was what God called the man of the end times. Yeah, back then I don't think I knew I was an angel. Right. It may not have been necessary for me to be at that point. Right. Yet it's a mission essential promotion, or a mission, as far as the mission dictates. Right. So he says, you're going to be like that. I said, what? You're going to be a man of the end times like that. So, all right, whatever, because God said stuff and I don't understand it completely, and I just accept it. Right. Again, I am a witness, but I'm probably not one of the two witnesses. Right. There's more than two witnesses. So again, based upon what I could effectuate of what God wanted, correct, that also judged the planet. Thank you, Mary. No, again, God doesn't have to have me go to church 50, 60 times for him to judge the whole time period. So I tried to go to church a couple of times. The criminals in government and outside of government that they kind of call the deep state and stuff, they got involved and messed it up. So God judged it. I'm right there right now trying to go to church. The criminals, they're in the middle of it. No, it's not a test. No, it isn't to protect the church. It's a criminal enterprise that runs throughout many police departments, federal agencies, state agencies, and it's in the private sector, and they're into drug dealing and sex trafficking, and they arrest the competition. So the government people are busy arresting the other criminal enterprises while taking kickbacks and other things from these other criminal enterprises, on the take, they call it. So I try to go to church now. Here we are, like what? When's the last time I tried to go to church? How many years ago was that? 10, 15 years ago. Still same shit. It doesn't matter if I get baptized and everybody welcomes me as far as the leadership. And I'm not saying it's anybody in the leadership, but it could be. There's going to be a role playing out, right? And if I don't, like, if I keep showing up to church and I keep interacting with people, eventually I'll interact with those people, and they'll make a statement like, "Oh, that guy said this to me," and then miraculously there was somebody 10 years ago that said the same thing that I said that to him. Right. And then there's be someone else in the church that will back that person, and he said it to me. See, that's how they do it. The investigation tells them, like the corrupt investigation, tells them what they're supposed to say about me and how they're supposed to act around me. Right. So all the witness statements are Jussie Smollett type things, but worse because they're pointing at me and saying I did it. Like Jussie Smollett said somebody did it. Right. So Jussie Smollett never pointed at a specific person. That's why that's why it was dismissed. Because everybody knows that there's a corrupt thing going on where everybody makes up a story about some victim and everybody's paid after they spring the trap. And they say, and because there's corroborating statements, again, not law enforcement, corrupt law enforcement's in there, they use their theories, right? Well, drug dealers and Sex traffickers are in there too. Again, there are sex traffickers and drug dealers that pay dirty cops, and the cops go out and arrest the competition. So they look good because they're arresting drug dealers and sex traffickers, but it's only the competition. But just people living in $1 million houses in this world, or not in this world, in Overland Park, that are part of this. Something like that. Right? And there's cops that are part of it. And they want to live in the $1 million house. Do you see how it works? So they play this game based upon, again, I told you how the Christians play the game based upon the Bible. They manipulate people's lives. They curse people to sinner lives. And they go, oh, see, there's the sinner in the Bible. A sinner is given over to reprobate mind. God's done that. Give him over to reprobate. No, you cursed him to reprobate mind. You won't let them out of the reprobation, and you'll go to hell for it, and that person will go to heaven. Thank you, Larry. What do you think was going to happen when you started attacking me again? I was going to go, oh, Jesus saves? You think that's what I was going to say to you? Devils? Satan incarnates? Thank you, Larry. And now if the IRS is going, of course, you're not going to find those people. It's like my brother, he don't want to believe what I say. But he's going, well, why? I don't get it. Why are they getting rid of the IRS? Why don't you use them for these complex investigations? Oh, you don't get it? Just be a donor, as long as you're a donor. Just be a donor and you're off the investigation list, right? Thank you, Larry. So remember, Matt Fogg said, which was that chief deputy marshal, I guess, was his final rank, and he was on the DEA task force. He said when he was on DEA task force, why aren't we going into those neighborhoods? Why aren't we just going into the poor black neighborhoods? Why aren't we going to those millionaire neighborhoods? Because that's really where they're moving the dope into the area. Again, they're the higher level distributor. And they said, well, Matt Fogg, if we go into those neighborhoods, they'll pull our funding, and we won't be able to arrest anybody. See? Still going on here? Thank you, Larry. They sacrifice your kids every day, and they come to your school and run a DARE program the next. Right. Nobody cares if their kids get somewhere. Sometimes they don't even care. Like the DEA agent, his daughter was a drug distributor. he couldn't figure it out, or was he part of it? And they just didn't implicate him. I don't know if that woman was waving at me. They're doing that. You're talking, wiggling her fingers. I don't know, right? Like a mouth, Looked half stoned. Right. They're going to hell, man. All these people are going to hell. The people you see addicted to drugs and things, they're going to hell, even if they commit a crime. They just don't have a life to be judged. Right. Now, the LDS say everybody's going to one day get to heaven. I believe that. And where did I get that from? It's God's will that none should perish. If it's God's will, it's going to happen someday. It's just a matter of when. Right. If you read the scripture, what ends up going into the lake of fire is the mind possession, the ability, the thing that causes people to sleep. Correct. But again, these people will go to hell, as far as I have understood it. So since it's 10, oh shit, 10 a.m. would be, wow, that's far down the road. So, today's date is, actually it's not that far, it's next Saturday. Right? I'm gonna have to figure out how to get a massage. I'm gonna have to find someone else, I guess, too. Well, but she does all those muscles. If I'd have found her like 6 months ago, I'd have been fine. I wouldn't have lost all that hearing. Right. I mean, I'm so well. I was driving to all those Menards. Again, it seems like somebody tried to take me out, like they used something, right? But I can't prove it. They were breaking in. There's no doubt. Thanks, Larry. I mean, I wasn't well, but I was well enough to drive to 3 Menards and look at wood. Right? I think I was broadcasting the whole time. Just move a spell of protection and bring beings here to attack these people. If in fact that's part of what I'm saying, and I don't act physically on anything. I might as well destroy your lives if you want to try to threaten me. Correct. All right, there it is. Yeah, I almost had an hour's worth of walk again. That's what I was looking for. So again, that's how they do it. And again, that's why you see it heavy minority, because most people that are part of that criminal thing that I speak about are racist. Again, even some black people are racist. Right? Certain black people deserve to be arrested, right? And they're above that, quote unquote. So again, that's what's going on the planet. That's why your kids are dying of narcotics overdoses. They sacrifice your kids. So yeah, what they do is they put the information out as to it's pretty much what the statements are supposed to be about a specific person that they're killing. Right. But why are they killing them? Don't start that again, please. Because they're devils, demons, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers, and they're murderers, and their father is the devil. Right. And they're trying to kill good people and make the illusion happen for them. that's the only way that narcotics are in this nation, in this country. That so again, what if you notice Donald Trump's bogged down, right? You have to regroup and look into narcotics distribution and sex trafficking and make sure it's not increasing under his watch. Because the problem is when you support cops no matter what, you're all supporting those cells of deep state and the cells of corruption. And that includes narcotics distribution and sex trafficking. Right. So you have to be careful on that. Bless you, sir. Well, again, the problem is once you make certain statements, it's difficult to turn in the other direction because the media is going to rub your nose in it, right? But again, when they make you afraid to go in a different direction or make you annoyed at going in another direction, they're setting you up for a bigger fall. God bless you, Larry. Right. So, like these big houses around here, some of those people are narcotics distributors in what I call the approved narcotics distribution conspiracies, criminal conspiracies. So those organizations are allowed to do it. Well, you didn't want the guy that doesn't talk about this. That's obvious. Not here to play that game, all of you. Thanks, Larry. Again, a lot of those people are bound for hell. You want to go with them, and then hook up with them. Well, I know it's happening. What do you mean you don't think it's happening? I know it's happening. 1%. Again, there's no other way to beat the system that we developed. Again, they send them after me. They send the interdiction units after me while I drive down the highway. I mean, come on. Who do you think's 10 cars behind me? 1%. The approved narcotics distributors. Correct. That's why sometimes you'll see people get snotty with the cops, like, why are you pulling me over? Because they're part of something like that. They may not be the actual narcotics distributor, but they're part of that hands-off thing. And the cops they're not always on, cue with that. Right. So the majority of the effort is the way I explained it, where they send them after other people. And again, there's neighborhoods they don't get to just go in and investigate. Thanks, Larry. Thank you, Larry. Again, they're sacrificing your children and smiling at you, at the meetings and running the DARE programs. Right. Generally, they'll put a young cop that doesn't know about it in charge of the DARE programs, just to keep that a little bit clean. Right. It's a big scam, and then, like I said, some of the families are part of the narcotics counseling mafia. They get all the federal funding and state funding for narcotics counseling. And again, we found in some of those cases they were actually distributing narcotics. Right. Thanks, Larry. I have to stop wine because this is not the way it's supposed to go down when you torture me. And of course, everybody that did this to me, they try to make them afraid. Well, you're in it now. You just got to continue. Right. They'll take care of you in your life. Right. Actually, that's the scam. They get the cops to do all the dirty stuff to me and other people, and then go, well, whatever it is, you got to stay with it. You go to jail for it. And like I told you, Donald Trump's not going to jail, and they're not going to jail. It's a scam. It's like a battle between Judge and Trump's people. All right. Right. So again, with impeachment, you don't know what's going on. You don't even the president of El Salvador doesn't even know what's going on in El Salvador. He can only know so much because he can't be everything. Right. Well, you don't know how those deportees are actually being treated. Again, go through history when things actually mattered. It could happen in a day. Right. That's something like Pinochet turn up. Right. Okay. Greatest thing you did was get that guy out of that whatever it is, CCOT. Right. So the argument that like and Raleigh and the rest didn't have a right to due process or whatever. It only goes so far because every day in this country we try people for all sorts of crimes. Thanks, Larry. So essentially, they weren't supposed to be in my life. Not at all. Correct, Larry.
you can afford due process. You just have to build a stateside facility or find. Again, it doesn't have to be a Gitmo. I was a little confused about Gitmo to begin with. I thought it was a lawful location. You just have to provide the right services. Right. Again, it takes, I guess, a certain level of. Again, when you look at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, it's a good example. They have a system of deciding who goes where. Right. Right. So it shows an attempt to provide some fundamental fairness. Right. And again, not every one of those people is who you say it is. That's obvious. Well, it's again, you have to realize that CCOT was built to protect the everyday citizen and to provide, a life that's somewhat fair and protected. Well, what you need to do again is get down with inside the agencies and tell them you got to start, policing the truth. You can't just, take some BS statement. I don't know how long it's been going on. Obviously, it's been going on in my life. They did that to me, but if, I don't know, where, when, and how as far as gang membership. So again, just get down into those agencies and departments and try to reinforce the idea that they got to tell the truth, because it's going to fall back on you. The judges, you're not going to have evidence to take to the judges. Again, divorces and child custody are notorious for just BS statements. Correct. So there's no judge that's going to hold that statement credible unless they can about Abrego or whatever his name is being a gang member. For all you know, the guy that made the statement's a gang member. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a way to protect himself. He says Abrego's the gang member, so if they say he's the gang member, and he says, no, I told you they were. They're just saying that because they are, because they are. Right. I mean, it could be a gang member, but again, you have to get there to get there. And then the question is, well, if he's a gang member, you're deporting him back to his country. I guess that's valid. But the problem is, there's judges that found that he wasn't. Right. So again, they had that information, I believe, when they said he cannot be deported back to his home country. Well, there's initial. Again, you're looking at initial findings. Again, you can have a detention hearing or initial appearance where a judge finds that somebody's likely part of a gang, and then by the time the evidence is produced, found out that they aren't, or committed some crime and then it's found out that they aren't. So again, it's one of the big deep state scams. He's committed this crime, she's committed that crime, and it never goes to trial. So the person never gets to refute it. They just keep, you moving that informant paramilitary into the community to pass on that information, to say that about the person. Right. Well, I can't get to these massages anytime soon. I'm not even sure what to do there. Right. Mm. Hmm. Looks nice out here. I just wish I had my health back. I'll let God punish the people that caused the poor health. No, you didn't want the guy to bless his enemy. You didn't like me doing it. You didn't like Jesus doing it. Even if you go to church. So what do you think? Did she take that screw out, or did he take, or did they take the screw out of that box? Do you think that's what it was about? Right? Because it plays with your head. Oh, he took the screw out. That means they did something else to it. Because it'd be right over here, if anywhere, if I happen to drop it, and I did not find it whatsoever. Let's see it. That would make sense. That's our kind of thing. Woo. I guess I got to take my allergy med. Yeah. I had hearing loss, but not this bad. Again, this is not from just loud music or something. Yeah, and all you need to do is, and again, the idea of even listening to loud music, if you have a wife, you're not going to listen to loud music. You're not going to put headphones on, right? I don't know how much of that I did anyway. I didn't do all that much in recent days, right? Especially even the last 10 years. Correct. Thank you, Larry. I guess that's all for now. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.